Hi guys, it's Trisha with Coherence in Marketing. If you've sat in on the cornerstone session called Get a Grip on Your Ideal Customer, you know that I talk about these 4 components, these 4 things that help us increasingly get a better handle and paint a clearer picture of who our ideal customer is. I want to talk just a little bit about why is it even important? Like, why do we even need to know who we're ideally suited to work with? Because at the end of the day, a lot of business people think that I just need more customers. And I'm advocating for, you may need more customers, but you may need more customers that you are ideally suited to work with. And why I say that is 2 reasons. Number 1, real tangible reasons. That is that when we find people who we're really ideally suited to work with, there are some things that happen in our business that I'll talk about in a minute. But there's also some intangible components. And I'm going to start with the intangible because I'm going to tell a little story from my world that hopefully paints a bit of a picture of what this intangible outcome is all about. As most of you know, I come out of agency life. I spent over 20 years working for marketing agencies in a variety of different roles. And part of being inside of that agency world is you don't really get to choose who you work with. You know, the agency suits will go out and they'll bring clients back, and the client has certain needs or outcomes that they're trying to accomplish. And so the agency lead, it's their job to assemble the team that is going to be able to best satisfy or bring together the outcomes that are the client wants. Which means that we don't get a lot of choice. You know, if my discipline or my gifts and talents were required on that job, I was resourced onto that job regardless of whether or not I wanted to be there. I tell this story because it's a really great example of how one of the lenses that I have people look through in finding their contribution, which is culture, the story starts to frame the whole idea around culture. So I lived inside of agency culture for a long time. I lived inside of the marketing culture, and to some degree I probably still do. And I lived inside of being an employee. There's a culture that surrounds that. Those cultures that I've been a part of for so long have a profound impact on the contribution that I make today. How I go about doing what I do has been so fundamentally shaped by those cultures that it's a great deal of what my people see in me and in the way that I do what I do that draws them to me. It's what allows people to see whether or not I'm their person, and it allows me to help communicate who my people are so that we can start to find those intersections, those crossovers. It's that one of those 4 C's that you learned about inside of Get a Grip is contribution. It's the first one. And I get asked over and over, why do we start here? If it's about the customer, why are we starting here? And the truth of the matter is that to find your ideal customer, you need to find what is super unique about the way that you do what you do. That I don't believe that our businesses can really have the contribution in the world or in our community or the way that we envision it unless we know who our ideal customers really are. So when you think of who you're ideally suited to work with, it's more about your who as opposed to just focusing on what it is that you do. One of the quotes that you'll see around your contribution comes from a woman that I worked with, Jerry Lynn Erickson, and she used to say to me that who you are is what you have to offer. And it took me almost a decade to really try and understand what that was. because conventional marketing asks us, in really subtle ways, to really focus on the do. But it's not really getting at the heart of what it is about the business that draws the customer to you, right? So take another example. We know that if you sat in on Relationships for the Win, you know that a lot of our decisions get made at a very emotional level. We have a gut instinct or a heart reaction to someone based on what they look like, what they say, how they talk, and whether or not we just feel like they're our people. Conventional marketing doesn't really lean into that idea of really connecting at the emotional level. And the brands that you can see who really do that well, those are the ones that are really thriving right now, because they know what their people are all about, because their people are a reflection of them. All right, so I'm going to start to wrap this up a little bit. Identifying your ideal customer helps you to make a stronger connection with them almost from the get-go. They get to see and they get to sort of play it out across a number of different interactions to see if you are who you say you are. And, one of my favorite lines, or whether or not you think I'm full of bullshit. But we can't take it personally. When someone unfollows us, when someone doesn't go down the rabbit hole with us, it's just a reflection of there's a disconnect, that they've decided that we're not their people, and that's okay. Because if they think of it this way, in the context of relationship, you don't love everybody that you meet, right? And you don't want to have a relationship with every single person that you meet in life. And it's the same way in our customer world. If every single one of our customers that we met along the way, that watched a video that we put out, that engaged with an ad, that hit our website, that maybe even participated in some of our trial options, and was on our email list for a little while, if every single one of those people became a customer, even while they were saying, I don't know if this person's really me, we would start to really not like the emerging client base that we've got. So there's a dual aspect to us being really true and honest and authentic about who we are, so that our customers know whether or not we're their people. But to continue that thought, when we really click with someone, when we really make a connection because somebody is truly getting what it is that we're saying, that I think is where the magic happens. So we're talking about the intangible piece, this almost indefinable component of what it is to find customers that you are ideally suited to work with. But I want to just touch briefly on the tangible aspects, because there are some really tangible, practical, pragmatic outcomes to really connecting with people who are resonating with you. And it shows up inside of higher retention rates. You don't have as much customer turnover. You experience a lower cost per acquisition because you're able to get your message across very quickly, and people can find out whether or not they're connecting to you in fewer interactions. There's other things like you're building high trust relationships, which enable your customers to become referrers for you. So I trust that this will land exactly where it needs to land for those of you who will watch this. And I hope it kind of gives you a better sense about why it is that I suggest that you start with really looking at your contribution, what it is that you bring to the relationship, so that people can kind of get a better sense of who you are. Not what you do, but who you are in the context of what it is that you do.